Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. Coming to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolley, and joining me, as always, is my co-host,
Garrett K. Jones, author extraordinaire.
Oh, well, how are you today? I almost called you Walter. I don't know why.
I've got that face. I've got the face of a Walter.
I don't know.
Maybe
My daughter has a little a friend who goes to our church, whose name is Walter, and so I don't know why that popped in my head, but yes. Garrett, how are you today, Garrett?
I am good. I'm good. The last weekend, I swear, I'm pretty sure Mother Nature's been bipolar over here in Central California because the going into the weekend, we were hitting like mid 90s in the temperature scale and Fahrenheit for those of you who are listening from other parts of the world that use Celsius. So we ended up, my son and I ended up crashing out at my parents' house, which was great because they just live, half a mile away. But as of yesterday, the temperature dropped substantially. And so now, like, it was like a high of like 69 today. I'm just like, where was this just a few days ago?
So I don't know if you can see it on screen. It might be too blurry.
It's a little blurry. I'm getting like the glow reflection from the two screens.
Unfortunately. We had hail. I was telling you, we had about not much, but it was enough to cover the ground a little bit with little pea-sized hail. Nothing to what we had when I was in Colorado, living in Colorado. One time we had to bring up the snowplows for hail. 6 inches of hail. So anyway, that it was a lot of hail. Yeah. Roofers made a killing out there. But we're not here. This is not the weather podcast. That would be an interesting podcast.
Weather of Star Wars.
Weather of Star Wars. Is there enough to talk about Star Wars?
Well, there's sand. It's hot. It's coarse, and it gets all over the place.
Because it gets everywhere. Yeah. Anyway, we're here to do something a little bit different because, everyone likes to play the director or the what if, especially today. So we're going to kind of do a thought experiment. And so, Garrett, somehow you are, whether it's gifted the money to buy it or Kathleen Kennedy comes up to you and says, Star Wars is yours.
Oh, man.
Now,
that would be her first. That would be her last big mistake because it would be the end of Kathleen Kennedy.
So let's make some caveats here.
Oh man, I have limitations.
Yes, unfortunately,
all of a sudden I feel like the genie from Aladdin.
I always say that caveats. The one caveat is you can't change anything that's already happened.
That's fair.
So, I know one of the big things that a lot of people say is, they need to just cancel the sequel trilogy. Just get rid of it, make it non-canon. To me, that is just stupid. I mean, it's there.
It exists, for better or worse.
And not to get off on a little bit of a tangent, but one of the things that I hate when people say, and I don't use the word hate, but a lot, but I dislike it a lot when people will say that whether it be Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker is objectively bad. I don't think anything in film you can honestly say is objectively bad, because no matter how many people hate it, for every 10 people that hate Rise of Skywalker, you can find 10 that loved it. So it's subjective. Everything when it comes to things is subjective. So, it's just something we have to live with. Like you said, we have to live with it. It's part of the canon, whether we like it or not. And the people that say, oh, it's not Star Wars. Well, I'm sorry, it is. We may not like it. We may think, whatever we think about it, it's still Star Wars. So
Yeah,
that's my one. That's
I
my
think
one.
that's
That's
fair.
yeah. That's my one caveat is you can do things to maybe make the sequel trilogy make more sense coming
Yeah.
in the future and to work on that. But as far as just getting rid of it, that's the one caveat. Anything that came before has to stay.
And like I
So
said,
what
I
are
think
some?
that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say. So what were some of the things you would do to whether that be changes, show ideas,
So
focus what you focus on?
first and foremost, and this might throw some controversy at it, but the first thing I would do is I would get rid of, I would clean house. I mean,
Okay.
that's the thing that most new producers or IP handlers do when they come in.
Yeah.
It's what James Gunn has been doing with DC, and for better or for worse, it's probably the best thing he can do because he's putting in people that he knows he can work with. And I would probably do the same thing. For one, I've never been a big fan of Kathleen Kennedy,
Okay.
and since the direction that things have gone, I have not seen her handling the IP as well as it could have been handled. I
Okay.
think if Dave Filoni had been handed over the reins, without any oversight, I think that would have been great. I think having him and Jon Favreau working in tandem like they had been for the last couple of years would be great. The
Yeah.
problem is that has not been the case, and we've had Kathleen Kennedy, kind of pulling on certain strings and leading creative directions where the creative side of things in a direction that it shouldn't have gone. So first things first, I'd get rid of her. And I would also never, ever, ever in a million years hire J.J. Abrams again, because that man is a hack. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the fact that he used a lot of practical effects in both Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens. That I love because it was a refreshing take based on the opposing to the green screen heavy prequels.
Yeah.
That being said, the only project I would be eager to keep on the docket that's currently on task, aside from everything that's already been greenlit, is I would
Right.
actually only keep the James Mangold project, the High Republic stuff. That
Yeah.
I would keep. This new sequel spinoff with Rey gone. Given the direction that Mandalorian has gone in as a series, don't need it because all these shows in the Mandoverse, all they're doing is filling in a gap. And once the shows have run their course, that's pretty much all we need from them. Like we
Yeah.
don't need a second season of Obi-Wan because it told the story it needed to tell. Was it a great story? Probably not. Was it great to see Obi-Wan being played by Ewan McGregor again? Abso-freaking-lutely. And the scenes between him and Hayden Christensen as Anakin were spectacular. See Hayden Christensen in the Vader suit was amazing. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Ahsoka. I am a little curious about the Acolyte. That could be really good. But I would essentially I would dial back on just the constant production of content. I know that that's Disney's, that's the way they operate. But the purpose of Star Wars isn't about quantity; it's about quality. I mean, that's why it took. If you look at each of the trilogies, well, the first, I should say, the prequel and the original trilogy, there is 3 years between each film. You have 77, 80, and then 83, and then you have 99, 02, 05. There's 3 years in between, giving time for the creation of the process for casting and set design and all that. Now with the prequels, it was really easy to do set design because they just threw up a green screen, have people run through the studio, and they'd edit everything in post anyway.
Right.
But but the thing I do appreciate about George Lucas and the way he did things, both in those two trilogies, is the fact that he was pushing special effects.
Yeah.
He was pushing how groundbreaking they could be, and that was cool to see. And I think, looking back at it, there's no other way you could have made the Clone Wars appear on screen the way they did in live action without there being excessive amounts of green screening involved. But I would dial back those projects because if we want to make Star Wars as strong as it has been in the past, we want to make sure that we're focusing on quality, not quantity, not just hiring people because they tick off a bunch of boxes for representation, but because they actually have the merit to do the job and to do it well, and to make sure that whatever it is, whether it's the story, the filmmaking, the editing, the music, the effects, whatever it is, that we have the best people in place for the job, people who know the content, who know the material, and they're not just trying to push some kind of an agenda. The only agenda we should be pushing is Star Wars at its best.
Right.
That's where I stand with it.
All right. I actually
Catherine,
like a lot.
If you're listening, please hire me right now. I'm available.
So she can fire. So he can fire you.
Exactly. Mutually beneficial for everyone.
So for me, one of the things I would, and I agree with a lot of what you said. The first thing I would do is I would see like what other properties, not to copy from other properties, but look at any other properties that are around that have been successful for a long time, and kind of get an idea of what formula they use to be successful, and to see if we can use that. Some similar, like Marvel, for example. What has been the formula that made Marvel popular and such a juggernaut for so long? I think part of that is that they had an end game, not to use the term, not just the title of the movie, but they had yes, but they had a end goal in mind for, this is where we're going to, this is where we're going to end up. And they had someone at the helm that, in Kevin Feige, who was kind of, knew that vision and was able to control that vision. And I think someone like you mentioned, Dave Filoni would be someone, I think, in Star Wars that could do that. I would also start refocusing on movies, because that has been always what Star Wars has been, kind of their traditional thing is movies. And they've got away with that with the TV shows, which most, they've been good, but I would start focusing on feature films again. Get Star Wars back in theaters, because that's where, to me, that's the memory I have of Star Wars, is on the big screen. So I definitely would start, working on that. Like you said, finding directors and writers that know the property, know the content, and are able to take it, tell good stories and take it into the next generation. Make Star Wars for the next generation of kids growing up. Something that they can be proud of 20, 30 years from now, to look back and think, this was our Star Wars. Isn't this amazing? Like the way we look at the original trilogy.
Oh, absolutely. We
nostalgia and fondness.
And we need that.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, John, and mainly because there has been, like, it's really easy to saturate a market when you're doing something as a series.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, the beauty and the simplicity of Star Wars is that it came around once in a while. That was what
Mhm.
I loved about it before we had all the cable channels trying to, TBS and TNT streaming it almost every 3 months or so,
Right.
and marathoning it. And I think it's cool to do that. And I get, hey, let's marathon it, especially around the beginning of May. That makes sense. Um, or if there's a new Star Wars movie coming out.
Right.
But having all these shows coming out every couple of months and new episodes every single week, like animated series, that's fine, that works.
Yeah.
But having the live action series is problematic because then it oversaturates the market, just like what we're seeing with the MCU and DCEU. We're seeing superhero movie fatigue,
Yeah.
and I would hate is, especially from fans, seeing Star Wars fatigue.
Yeah.
It would suck.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree. I think that, like, and especially this idea of one series after another, after another, after another. You
Yes.
know, having a series and then maybe having a year between it, and in between those years, maybe having a movie, and then having a series a couple years after that, or another movie. At least having some sort of a break where you're not. It's not just Star Wars after Star Wars. Which is funny, which is odd. Having a Star Wars podcast, or like, let's slow down on the Star Wars.
And see, the beauty of doing the movies is the fact that it makes it an event.
Yes.
See, that was what was so cool about it, is like when, because I remember when episode 9 came out, when the first trailer hit in 1998, that
Yeah.
first teaser
Oh yeah.
trailer,
Episode. You mean episodes? Was it? Which?
episode 1 of The Phantom Menace.
Oh, episode 1. Yeah.
Okay. When that first trailer hit, it had only been about a year and a half since they did the special edition re-releases in theaters.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there in that theater watching that trailer for the first time and just completely losing my mind,
Mhm.
because this was the first new Star Wars movie since 1983. Yes, we'd had special edition VHSs come out. We had the special editions re-released into theaters. Very, very cool stuff. But
Mhm.
there is nothing more awesome than seeing a brand new Star Wars movie on the big screen for the
Yes.
first time. And for me, going in and seeing that, waiting in line with my ticket with
Hmm.
my best friend to get our seats, to make sure that we had a good enough seat, was it
Oh,
was there was so much anticipation, there's so
yes.
much anxiety, there's so much buildup, and whatever you have to say about the dialogue and the plot points involving the politics, it was worth the wait because
It
it was
was.
an event.
Yeah. I've said the same thing before, and I want to kind of just piggyback on what you just said. That was one of my favorite parts about this the prequel trilogy was waiting in line with
Yeah.
a bunch of Star Wars fans. And I've said this before, of different backgrounds, different races, different, whatever, but we're all there to watch Star Wars, and you don't get that with the TV show. You're sitting. Yes, it's fun to sit at home with my wife on the couch and you know watch The Mandalorian, or um, Obi-Wan, whatever show we were watching at the time. That's fun. That's neat. But there's something about being in that theater, and even with the sequel trilogies. I mean,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
fully admit that I will say that I will fully admit, as a grown man, when I was watching Rise of Skywalker for when I went to the theater and watched it in theaters, when it popped up a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I teared up.
I did too.
Because
And
in my mind I'm thinking, well, I'll tell you why. Because I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, because everyone said this was going to be the last of the Skywalker saga, And I said, this is going to be the last time I see this in theaters for the first time.
Yeah.
Like they just hit me. I'm like, when I saw that, I'm just like, this is it. This is the last time. I mean, as far as we knew, and we still don't know if we're ever going to see another saga movie again. But as far as we knew, we were told this is the end of the Skywalker saga. So they just like hit me as an emotion, like, oh, this is it. Am I
Yeah.
going to see Star Wars in theaters again? What is going on? You know, but yeah. So
it was really intense because like I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some scenes that, watching them in the moment, I did get choked up. And it wasn't because
yes,
they were well written or well acted, it was because they pushed on a few member berries for me.
yeah,
The but getting that experience to sit there and just shovel popcorn into my face,
yes,
in a crowded theater, like um the second I saw Rise of Skywalker once in my home theater, and then I went and saw it again Christmas Eve,
mm,
or was it Christmas Day? I can't remember. It was Christmas night. It was Christmas weekend, 1990, or not 1990, 2019,
yeah,
and my wife, my kids, my in-laws, we were all in this theater down in Irvine. It was packed. It was crowded, and we caught an afternoon evening showing on IMAX. This is the first time I'd ever seen a Star Wars movie in IMAX for one. And
I've
I'm
never
just sitting
seen
there
it.
shoveling popcorn into my mouth because I'm like, this is awesome. It's Star Wars as it's meant to be seen because of the
Yes,
scope and how freaking amazing it is.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And of course, for me, the heartstring moments were, of course, anything with Carrie Fisher in it. Um, it was just kind of like, and
Yes.
to think, and it was the what if, because you knew from what we heard, the original storyline had Leia a lot more in it. Like
Yes.
that was supposed to be her movie. Um, that was and to know that what could we have gotten if Carrie Fisher was still around? But um, yeah, I honestly, I would take a if I was given control of Star Wars, I would take a more hands off role. I would say
Well,
I would tell Dave to some extent. I would tell like I would take find a good core people that know starting with Dave Filoni, John Favreau would be another one, and then just kind of use them as like, okay, who who do you guys know that could be that are good. I mean, we've had some really good directors in The Mandalorian
yes,
that
we
have
have.
have done, and there's a good start for a good core people that can be kind of a creative head of Lucasfilm, to be kind of the creative backbone. Look at those directors and writers, Dallas Bryce Howard, John Favreau, Dave Filoni, right there. I think that would be like my trinity for Star Wars would be right there. Kind of like those would be the three people
Um,
that I would be like,
Maybe not Bryce Dallas Howard, although I do like some of the things that she has directed in the
yeah,
show. Um, Rick Famuyiwa, I'm gonna fumble his name. Famuyiwa,
yeah,
who directed the season 3 finale of Mando. I like
mm,
I like his directing style. It's really good. Um, I think my biggest beef, especially with regards to the way that we've seen in the shows lately, is where you have title characters, especially established male title characters,
mm,
who have been sidelined in their own series, either to promote some other character or group of characters, or simply to promote some kind of message, and it's really frustrating. I mean, we saw that happen with Book of Boba Fett,
mm,
where Boba spends the majority of his time sleeping in a fish tank. All right. Very little action from him. He gets sidelined for Fennec Shand, which, don't get me wrong, cool character, but she's not the title character.
Right.
Why are we seeing 80% of her and 20% of him? Right. We see that happen in Kenobi, where Kenobi is sidelined by an 8-year-old girl who seems to be way more street savvy than she should be. And then we saw it happen in this last season of Mando, where he's sidelined by a whole number of other Mandalorians, which is fine to have more Mandalorians, but when he's the title character, he's billed as the title character, and they flip that script and they're focusing on some other side character, that becomes frustrating. I mean, how would they feel if, Ahsoka started off as being the Ahsoka show, and then it quickly flipped to be focused on some random side character like a droid, like it becomes the Chopper show all of a sudden. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would watch the heck out of that show.
Oh yeah,
that droid is entirely entertaining. Yes. But my point there is if we're going to have a show or even a film focused on a particular character, keep the focus on that particular character. If we're going for ensemble, then we focus on the ensemble.
Yeah.
Don't shortchange the audience's experience with a character simply because you're trying to push an agenda. Yeah. Right? Make sure that the story matches with what you're trying to put out there. That's good storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well,
there are a couple of characters I would like to see, though, in Star Wars added back in.
All right.
For one, I mean, we've gotten a few examples of the Faline, but I would love to do a standalone film if we could get it done. And I think the best way to do it would be animation at this point, given the cast of characters, but Shadows of the Empire.
Ooh, that would be.
If we did want to go with a younger cast, all we have to do is cast younger people who look similar enough to play the parts. I mean, case in point, there have been some references to how the character, what is her name? Millie Bobby Brown, who plays 11 on Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Like, she looks very similar to how Princess Leia looked at the age of 19.
I know a lot of people also said Billie Lourd, Leia's daughter. She's, I mean, ironically, being Carrie Fisher's daughter, looks a lot.
She looks the part.
I know a lot of people have said, I can't think of his name, Stan.
Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian Stan. A lot of people have said he looks a lot like Mark Hamill. I think he would play a good Mark Hamill for like the time period that Mando takes place in, because he's a little bit older. A lot of people were kind of hoping that whenever Luke showed up, that it would have been Sebastian Stan.
Because it was fan casting but they already had something in place. My point is, that would be a great story because we've been doing all this stuff to bridge in between the events of the various trilogies. Like, you've got Rogue One and Solo bridging some time frame, and even Kenobi to a point, bridging some time frame between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. And we've got Mando and Boba Fett and Ahsoka bridging that space in between
the original trilogy and the sequels.
Right. And so there's so much but what about in between the original trilogy?
Yeah.
Like, probably one of the coolest stories I've seen to come out of the current era is the first volume graphic novel of the Marvel Star Wars set. And the very first volume has Boba Fett being hired by Vader to figure out who the X-Wing fighter pilot was that destroyed the Death Star.
Yes. And
at the very end, Fett shows up.
I read that.
And he talks to Vader, and Vader's like, you found who it is? He's like, yes, I found who it is. And he's like, what's the name? Skywalker. and Boba leaves, very stoic the way he is, and the last thing you see is Vader's hand grip into a fist, and the glass protecting him from the void of space cracks because he
Yes.
realizes he's been lied to for the last 20 some years.
Yes.
By so many people, Palpatine included.
My favorite, not to get off, but I've read the ones that came before, the graphic novels, and one that came before that. One of my favorite scenes in that one is when you have a scene where Vader or Luke and Vader meet, and Vader's attacking him. Luke's going after him and saying, "You killed my father," and Vader's responsive, "I've killed many fathers.
Yeah.
You'll have to be more specific."
Yeah.
And then he's like,
For me, it was
"Where did you get this light?" Yeah, he's like, takes lightsaber. He's like, "Where did you get this lightsaber?"
Yeah, he recognizes it. He recognizes some of the training. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, because like good warriors, like any good fighter worth their salt, they recognize fighting styles, and fighting styles are like fingerprints.
Yeah.
Which is why he could see it, because he knew Kenobi was out there, so he could see Kenobi's training in Luke.
Yeah.
When I mean, we see it now in hindsight after Revenge of the Sith, but I mean the moment in Return of the Jedi when Luke jumps up onto that higher platform and Vader says, "Obi-Wan's taught you well."
Wow.
Yeah, he taught me to go for the high ground.
Well, this has been a fun discussion as we kind of wrap things up here on the high ground. Well, Garrett, why don't you tell the fine people out there where they can find you at?
Yeah, you guys can find me on a couple of different locations. First of all, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at GKJ_publishing, where I promote my books. I've got 5 books out in my ongoing fantasy series, The Archives of the Cinque Ran. You can also connect with those books by going to archivesofthe5kingdoms.com, where you can connect with me. And I promote what I do there with my books and my writing, as well as my YouTube show, which is called The Right Way. You can find me, you can just search for my channel, GKJ Publishing, on YouTube. The links should be in the description. And on my show, we do top 10 book recommendations, author interviews, creative writing tips. In fact, this coming Saturday, Revenge of the 6th, I'm going to have Will, Darth Tuba, one of our former co-hosts, on my show to do his top 10 book recommendations. Yes, they're going to be Star Wars recommendations. There's also going to be an opening crawl akin to Star Wars, as well as some holographic Jedi mumbo jumbo on the green screen. So I'm really looking forward to this. I've been planning this episode for quite a while. Ironically, it's the episode is the 25th episode of this season, so it's episode 5.25. So that's
Awesome.
Yeah.
As for us right here, of course, if you want to get a hold of us, the best way to do that is through our email. Just email warthestars1@gmail.com. There's also our Twitter handle. All of our social medias, you can find us under War of the Stars at starwars.com. Just look for the official War of the Stars logo. You can check us out wherever fine podcasts are heard. We're on Spotify, pretty much everywhere. Just search War of the Stars.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're there.
We're there. Yeah, pretty much. Got a quick shout out to everyone who's been listening to the show, who has listened. Let me just say that anytime I hear someone, whether I'm out, no matter where I'm at, and I see someone like tell me, "Hey, I listened to your show," whether it be in person, on the internet, wherever, it's really, really humbling. And really, it's so cool that people actually listen to the silly little show that we do. With that being said, next week is our anniversary show, our 6-year anniversary. We got some special guests planned. We're going to be live streaming that. We don't know how long. We're still kind of working on how long we're going to do it. We had big plans initially, but we're old and
Well, old-ish.
old-ish. Um, but we got some big things planned. We're going to live stream, so I hope you all join us in the chat. Like I said, some special guests and blasts from the past. If you've been watching or listening to War of the Stars since the beginning, it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, again, let me just say this. Next Saturday, if you're in the Indianapolis area and you're going to be attending Indiana Comic Con, I will be there along with my daughter and my other co-host on my other show, Star Wars Through the Eyes of a Child. Check it out on YouTube.
What date is that con?
May.
Is it May 6th?
May 6th.
Yeah, well, hey, just so you guys are aware, that is also the day of Free Comic Book Day. For those of you local to the Kings County area, that's Kings County, California, as opposed to, Kings County, Washington, which is a real place. I will be down at DJ's Collectibles. The shop owner, Jason, he and a bunch of his guys are part of the local chapter of the 501st Vader's Fist. So they're going to be out there. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff. I'll be vending my books, so come on down if you're local.
Definitely check out. Like I said, if you're in the Indy area, see if you can find us. Just look for the most adorable little Darth Vader you've ever seen.
That's going to be such a fun weekend for you.
It is. The entire most of the cast of Clone Wars are going to be there. I know Ashley's going to be there. Matt Lanter's going to be there.
D. Bradley Baker.
The
main character.
Yeah. Of the Clone Wars. And then Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Gosh, I can never remember. James.
Yeah.
Oh crud, that's gonna kill me.
It's another three like uses
James Arnold Taylor. James
Arnold Taylor. Yeah. They're all gonna be there. They're gonna be doing a panel, which we're gonna definitely check out.
That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So we're really looking forward to that. And with that being said, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
This is the way.